Hello and welcome to Daily Reflection with Aneel Aranha. Today is the 1st of July. It's a new month. Half the year is over. We're going to reflect on Mark chapter 5, 21 to 43. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him, and he was by the sea. Then one of the leaders of the synagogue named Jairus came, and when he saw him, fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." So Jesus went with him. And a large crowd followed him and pressed in on him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, for she said, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well." Immediately her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" He looked all around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, some people came from the leader's house to say, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the leader of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." He allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the house of the leader of the synagogue, he saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. When he had entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. Then he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And immediately the girl got up and began to walk about. She was 12 years of age. At this, they were overcome with amazement. He strictly ordered them that no one should know this and told them to give her something to eat. The Gospel of the Lord. Two great miracles take place here. One, a woman who has been bleeding for several years is healed, and two, a little girl who has died is brought back to life. While the raising of the little girl from the dead is undoubtedly an amazing miracle, there are some tremendous lessons to be learned from the healing of the woman, so we're going to look at that in the reflection today. This woman was bleeding for 12 years. This made her ceremonially and socially unclean, and she had been this way for so many years of her life. Furthermore, Jewish law stated that if she touched anyone, they became unclean as well and would also not be able to take part in social or religious life. So, for all practical purposes, this woman was a social outcast. Now, in this story, she is moving through a throng of people and not wanting to defile Jesus, she touches his cloak. She wanted to be whole, but not at the expense of contaminating the person who would make her whole. Of course, she didn't realize that even if she did touch him, he wouldn't be defiled. She would be healed. In any event, she was healed. Now, she wasn't the only one who touched Jesus that day. We read that a large crowd followed Jesus and pressed in on him. But when this woman touched Jesus, power went forth from him. What was the difference? Well, there is touching and there is touching. What's the difference? I think it is a matter of the heart. Hebrews 11:6 says that without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. This woman earnestly sought him in faith. Now listen to what happens next. Jesus stops and asks, "Who touched my clothes?" You think he didn't know? Of course he did, but he wanted this woman to step out of the shadows she had been living in for so many years and walk in the light. No more an outcast, but someone that God had accepted and claimed as his own. He calls her daughter. It is the same with us. When we go to Jesus with our years of sin, he doesn't become a sinner. We become righteous. Let us never walk in condemnation again, but in the freedom that comes through Christ Jesus. God bless you.